I should have known something like this would happen. Growing up, my sister Lauren always had a way of taking what was mine, my clothes, my friends, and eventually, even the people I loved. But I never imagined she'd go as far as stealing my fiancé just hours before we were supposed to say I do. Lauren was always the golden girl. Everyone adored her. Our parents, our neighbors, even my old crushes. She had charm, beauty, and a way of twisting the truth so convincingly that I often ended up apologizing for her mistakes. My name is Rachel, and this is the story of how my sister betrayed me and how I turned her perfect day into a lesson she'll never forget. It started when I was 16. Lauren convinced my prom date to ditch me by telling him I'd been secretly talking to someone else. Years later, she moved in with my college boyfriend while I was abroad, claiming she was just helping him through grief. Our parents always defended her, saying she was impulsive but harmless. I believed them, even when I shouldn't have. But Daniel, he was different. Or so I thought. We were together for 4 years. I believed in his dream to open a restaurant so deeply, I gave him all my savings, $23,000, to help him make it real. We planned a beautiful wedding, invited everyone we loved, and booked the same restaurant where we had our first date. I was days away from walking down the aisle until I walked in on them in bed. There she was, Lauren, wrapped in the honeymoon lingerie I had picked out, laughing like she'd won the lottery. And Daniel, my fiancé, scrambling for excuses. That morning, everything in me shattered. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I made a decision. If they wanted to take my wedding, they were going to get all of it. Just not the way they imagined. They say love is about giving. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes, when you give someone everything, you're left with nothing but regret. I met Ryan at the lowest point in both our lives. I was waitressing at a run-down diner to put myself through nursing school, exhausted and barely scraping by. Ryan was a line cook with big dreams and an even bigger chip on his shoulder. He had dropped out of college to attend culinary school, and his family never let him forget it. To them, he was the failure, the one who gave up on a real future to chase something unrealistic. But to me, he wasn't a failure. He was passionate, driven, and endlessly creative. I saw in him what no one else did, someone worth believing in. We bonded over burnt lasagna and midnight kitchen cleanups. When we both had early shifts, we'd meet at the back door with lukewarm coffee and pep talks. He made me laugh during the hardest nights. I helped him sketch out restaurant names and menu ideas on the backs of napkins. He called me his anchor, his reason to keep going. By the time he proposed 4 years later, I thought we'd been through enough to survive anything. I had saved every spare dollar I could. Cutting back on clothes, skipping vacations, working every holiday shift. Until I had $23,000 in my savings account. That money was supposed to be our future. When banks refused to give Ryan a loan, I didn't hesitate. I handed over everything I had, convinced we were building something beautiful together. And it wasn't just money. I gave him my time, my emotional energy, my belief. I defended him when his own father mocked his dreams. I vouched for him in front of investors, friends, and even my skeptical coworkers. I stood by him when it felt like the world was stacked against us. He said he'd never had anyone fight for him like I did. I believed him. We got engaged in the exact spot where we had our first real date, on the patio of a little Italian place called Russo's. Ryan had prepared a sunset picnic, complete with my favorite pasta, a playlist of our songs, and a ring he'd saved for by working double shifts. I can't imagine doing this with anyone else, he told me, his voice trembling. You make me better at everything. That was the man I believed I was marrying, the man I trusted enough to build a life with. So when I saw him in bed with my sister the day before our wedding, everything I thought I knew about him shattered into pieces. It wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. Of my love, my trust, my future. And of the money I'd worked years to save, money he and Vanessa planned to use to open a restaurant without me. I thought about all those nights we stayed up dreaming about our future. I thought about the way he looked at me when I first told him I believed in him, even when no one else did. I thought about every sacrifice I made, and how he turned around and used it to build a life with someone else. My sister, of all people. People often think heartbreak is the worst pain, but betrayal, that's deeper. It's personal. It makes you question who you are and why you ever thought love was safe. But even in that moment of devastation, I knew one thing: I wouldn't let this define me. I had given Ryan everything, and now I was going to take it back. Not just the money, or the wedding, or the reputation they tried to ruin. I was going to take back the power they thought they stole. I wasn't some fragile girl crying in a corner. I was the woman who made their dreams possible. And now, I was going to be the one who made them pay. Because love might be about giving, but self-respect, that's something you fight to keep. They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. For me, it was the day I buried every illusion I ever had. About love, about loyalty, and especially about family. It was 5:00 a.m., the morning before my wedding. I hadn't slept all night, my stomach tight with excitement and nerves. So I decided to surprise my fiancé, Ryan, with his favorite dark roast coffee and fresh bagels from the diner down the street. I wanted to spend a few quiet minutes together before the whirlwind of the day began. I even wore the soft blue hoodie he loved. The one he said made me look like home. I unlocked the door to his apartment, like I'd done hundreds of times before. But this time, I walked into something I'll never forget. There she was, Vanessa, my younger sister, in my white silk honeymoon lingerie, tangled in his sheets, and there he was, Ryan, the man I was supposed to marry in less than 24 hours. Bare-chested, hair tousled, frozen in shock like a deer caught in headlights. On the nightstand beside them, my engagement ring, the same ring Ryan had saved for months to buy. The ring I had worn with pride. Now it was just a cruel prop in their betrayal. At first, no one spoke. Vanessa didn't look surprised, no guilt, no shame, just smug satisfaction. She didn't bother to cover herself. She just sat up slowly, tilted her head, and said with a kind of calm that broke my soul, "I was going to tell you." Ryan realized he picked the wrong sister. Ryan tried to stammer something. Some pitiful string of excuses about being confused. About how he still loved me. His voice cracked. His hands trembled. But Vanessa? Oh no. She didn't let him lie. She laughed. That same manipulative laugh she used when we were 12 and she blamed me for breaking Mom's antique vase. "Stop pretending you're sorry, Ryan," she said, like this was just another performance. "We've been planning this for months. Tell her about Vegas. About Christmas. About Portland." Each word hit me like a hammer. Vegas. March, during that restaurant conference. Christmas. Under our parents' roof. Portland, the city Ryan had casually mentioned wanting to move to. And suddenly, everything made sense. The late nights, the distance, the fake smiles, the canceled plans, and then came the final blow. "Tell her about the 23,000. Vanessa said, her voice colder now. "The money she gave you for the restaurant. The one you're opening with me." I almost collapsed. That money wasn't just savings. It was years of 60-hour shifts, missed holidays, skipped meals. It was mine. And they had planned to steal it. After my wedding, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply walked out, down the stairs, out the door, into my car. I drove to Sunset Beach, the place Ryan had proposed a year earlier. I sat there for 6 hours, staring at the ocean, trying to understand how the people I trusted most had conspired to destroy me. But the more I thought about it, the colder I felt. This wasn't heartbreak. This wasn't grief. This was war. Vanessa had taken my boyfriends before. She'd taken my opportunities, my voice in the family, even my bedroom when I left for college. And every time, I forgave her. Because I believed in family. I believed people like her would eventually grow up, apologize, change. But this time was different. This wasn't just a stolen man. This was my life, and if she wanted my wedding so badly, then she was going to get it. All of it. The guests, the cake, the vows, the cameras. Every moment. But it would happen on my terms. Not hers. I wasn't going to cry in the shadows while she walked down the aisle in victory. No, I was going to hand her the spotlight and burn the entire stage down. And when it was all over, when the final toast had been made and the last photo had been taken, the world would know exactly what kind of person my sister was and exactly the kind of woman I had become. They say blood is thicker than water. But when I walked into my parents' kitchen the morning after catching my fiancé in bed with my sister, I learned the hard way that loyalty doesn't always follow family lines. It was 11 a.m. I'd spent the night at Sunset Beach, the same place where Ryan had proposed to me a year earlier. But this time, there were no fairy lights or playlists, just crashing waves and silence. I'd driven there in shock, then sat in stillness for hours until my heart stopped racing and something else settled in its place, cold, absolute clarity. When I came home, I expected heartbreak. I expected my parents to hold me, to cry with me, to be just as outraged as I was. But instead, I walked into chaos, not outrage, but panic. My mom was on the phone with the florist, sobbing about the lost deposit. My dad was arguing with the caterer, trying to talk them out of their cancellation fee. It was like my wedding being cancelled was merely a logistical inconvenience to them. When they saw me, my mother rushed over with red eyes and mascara streaks. "Sweetheart," she whispered. "Ryan called. He explained everything. He said it was just cold feet, that it didn't mean anything. Maybe if you two just talked." "Talk? With the man who slept with my sister?" "Emily," my dad added gently, "you know your sister. Vanessa's impulsive. She doesn't think. This doesn't have to be the end. People make mistakes before big life events." I stared at them both, realizing they still didn't get it. After everything, after decades of me being second to Vanessa, they were doing it again, minimizing her betrayal, asking me to be the bigger person, treating my pain like an unfortunate accident instead of the deliberate, disgusting choice it was. "No," I said simply. "The wedding is still happening, just not the way anyone expects." Their faces twisted in confusion. "What do you mean?" Mom asked cautiously. I said, pouring a glass of water with steady hands, "that I'm thinking more clearly now than I have in years. And I'm not canceling a thing." I left them standing there, wide-eyed and speechless, and locked myself in my childhood bedroom, the same room Vanessa had begged to take over when I went off to college. That was the first time I let her take something from me without a fight. It would be the last. I picked up the phone and called my cousin Derek. The same Derek I once helped through a nasty divorce where his ex-wife tried to take everything. He was a tech security specialist now, working for high-profile clients, installing hidden cameras, investigating corporate theft, even catching cheating spouses. If anyone could help me make sure this betrayal didn't stay hidden, it was him. When he picked up, I didn't hesitate. "Remember when you said I could ask for anything, anytime? Name it," he said without skipping a beat. I told him everything. The affair. The money. The lies. And what I wanted to do about it. Derek didn't judge me. He didn't even sound surprised. "Those two picked the wrong person to mess with," he said. "I'll handle the technical side. You handle the show?" Next, I called Chelsea. The wedding photographer Vanessa had insisted on hiring. I told her the plan had changed. I wanted everything documented. The chaos, the discomfort, the truth. She agreed without hesitation. "I love capturing real moments," she said. "And it sounds like tomorrow will be unforgettable." Finally, I made the hardest call. To Ryan's mother. Patricia had never liked Vanessa. She called her that manipulative little peacock after she flirted with Ryan's married brother at our engagement party. When I told her what had happened and what I was planning, there was a long pause on the line. Then she said quietly, "Tell me what you need. That boy's been asking for consequences for a long time." It was the first time I felt truly seen. By nightfall, everything was in motion. The guests would still come. The flowers would still be delivered. The ceremony would still take place. But when Vanessa walked down that aisle, she wouldn't be stealing my spotlight. She'd be walking straight into it. If Vanessa wanted my wedding, I was going to let her have it. All of it. The guests, the flowers, the music, the cake. Every carefully curated detail she helped me plan, she could keep it, because she thought she'd stolen something valuable from me. But she hadn't stolen a wedding. She'd stolen trust. And now, I was about to steal her dignity. In front of 200 guests and the internet. The morning of what was supposed to be my big day, I woke up at 6 a.m. feeling unnervingly calm. While most brides are buzzing with nerves, I had one mission. Make sure everyone finally saw Vanessa and Ryan for who they truly were. I had spent the entire previous day putting the plan in motion. My cousin Derek, a cybersecurity expert, had installed hidden cameras in Ryan's apartment just days before, with evidence in hand. Video footage of them together, text messages detailing their scheme to use my savings, and even a clip of Vanessa mocking me. We were ready. Then there was Chelsea, the photographer. She thought she was coming to shoot a traditional wedding. Instead, she'd be capturing the most memorable downfall of her career. I'd even asked her to bring backup memory cards and prep for some dramatic moments. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "I'm ready." And then came the hardest part, acting like everything was normal. I walked into the bridal suite, where Vanessa was already dressed in the sapphire, blue bridesmaid dress I'd paid $400 for. She looked startled when I entered. "Emily," she said, voice trembling. "Can we talk? I know what you saw, but it wasn't." I cut her off with a smile. No explanation needed. She blinked, confused. "You're not mad?" "Ma," I laughed lightly. "How could I be? You and Ryan are obviously meant for each other." She relaxed visibly, even smiled. "You're being so mature about this?" I adjusted a strand of her hair and looked her straight in the eyes. "Since you love him so much, I thought you should be the one walking down the aisle today." Her face went pale. "What? I've arranged everything. The ceremony, the vows, the reception. You're marrying Ryan today. Right now, in front of everyone," she stammered. "But what will people think?" I gave her a serene smile. "They'll think you're in love. Isn't that the story you wanted?" At 11 a.m., I sat in the front row of seat, Mary's Cathedral, in the seat where the bride's mother would normally be. My parents were beside me, wide-eyed and speechless. Guests murmured in confusion when the officiant announced that the bride had changed. Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear. Vanessa, now stuffed into a borrowed wedding dress from our cousin, walked stiffly down the aisle. Her smile was forced. His hands were shaking. The ceremony went on. When the pastor asked if anyone objected, 200 heads turned to me. I simply smiled and nodded for them to continue. After the awkward kiss, the reception began. Vanessa and Ryan sat at the head table, looking like prisoners awaiting sentencing. The cake was still beautiful. The music still played. But then, just before the cutting of the cake, I tapped my glass for attention. "I have a special gift for the newlyweds," I announced. A look back at their love story. The lights dimmed. A screen lowered. The first image appeared Vanessa and Ryan in bed laughing. Then clips rolled. Her trying on my wedding dress in his apartment, him talking about stealing my money, them mocking me for being too trusting. The room fell silent. Some guests gasped. Others whispered. Ryan's mother stood up and left disgusted. My own parents sat frozen in disbelief. And I stood there calm, composed, and completely in control. When the footage ended, I picked up the microphone. "Surprise?" I said. "I thought everyone should know the truth about the happy couple." Phones buzzed across the room. Derek had sent a link to everyone's phones, a private website containing every video, screenshot, and message. The proof was undeniable, and I'd made sure it would live forever. Ryan and Vanessa stormed out through the kitchen, Vanessa screaming at him. "You said she'd never fight back?" He shouted back, "You said it would be easy?" As they vanished, I looked around at my guests, many of whom came up to apologize for not seeing it sooner. I simply smiled and thanked them for coming. Because yes, Vanessa got my wedding, but I got the last word. People often say karma takes its time, but sometimes it arrives dressed in white, in front of 200 wedding guests, with a camera pointed straight at your lies. The fallout from Vanessa and Ryan's fake wedding was swift and brutal. Within hours, the video had gone viral, shared by guests, picked up by gossip blogs, and reposted across Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. It didn't take long before they became infamous as the cheating sister and the con artist fiancé. And believe me, I made sure they were tagged in every post. Ryan's restaurant dreams died overnight. Investors who once shook his hand at dinner parties were now pulling out faster than you could say. Embezzlement. One investor even emailed me directly to say, "Thank you for showing me who I was about to do business with." The $150,000 in startup funds Ryan had been counting on disappeared in a matter of days. The name, Patterson's Place, became a running joke on Reddit threads. As for Vanessa, her job at a conservative family law firm ended with a formal termination letter citing moral turpitude and conduct inconsistent with firm values. In short, her image was shattered, and the company didn't want anything to do with her. Apparently, being the star of a viral cheating scandal didn't look good on a resume. They moved, twice. First to Colorado, then to a small town in Iowa. But it didn't matter. The internet followed them. Every time they applied for jobs or tried to blend in, someone recognized them. Social media algorithms made sure their faces popped up in related searches and most viewed categories. At one point, Vanessa had to legally change her name. Still, it was too late. Their story had already been immortalized online. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. The $23,000 they planned to steal? I used it to launch my own healthcare consulting business, helping hospitals improve patient care systems. It was something I'd dreamed of doing for years. But I'd put it off to support Ryan's ambitions instead of my own. Now, it was my turn. With Derek's help, I grew the business faster than I imagined, and as we spent time together, first in planning revenge, then in healing from the aftermath, something between us shifted. Our friendship deepened into something quieter, warmer, and undeniably real. One evening, over a simple dinner at home, Derek looked at me and said, "You know, I fell in love with you when you took control of your life. Watching you stand up for yourself, it was the most powerful thing I've ever seen." 3 months later, he proposed. This time, the engagement wasn't rushed. There was no drama. No lies. Just two people who had been through enough to know exactly what they wanted, and what they would never tolerate again. The best part. Everyone from the original wedding, photographer, caterer, florist, offered to provide their services for free for our real celebration. They'd all been there to witness my humiliation, and now they wanted to be part of my joy. Even Ryan's old college friends asked to attend, bringing their wives who said they just had to meet the woman who pulled off the most legendary wedding twist of all time. As for Vanessa and Ryan, they're still legally married. Not by choice, but because neither can afford a divorce attorney. The last I heard, she was working night shifts at a gas station in Wyoming under a new name. He was washing dishes at a truck stop diner outside of Tulsa. Every time they try to start over, someone recognizes them. And I hope they always will. Because they didn't just try to steal money. They tried to humiliate me, to erase me. Instead, they made me unforgettable. A year ago, I stood in front of a room full of people expecting to see a wedding, and gave them the truth instead. My fiancé had betrayed me. My sister had destroyed my trust, and for a moment, it felt like my entire life had collapsed in front of an audience. But something strange happened after the dust settled. I didn't fall apart. I rebuilt. With the money they tried to steal, I launched my own consulting business in healthcare. I stopped apologizing for being ambitious. I traveled. I rested. I reconnected with friends who reminded me who I was before I ever tried to make someone else's dream my whole world. And slowly, quietly, something even better came into my life. Love that didn't come with betrayal or conditions. Derek, the cousin who helped me expose everything, was with me through every stage of rebuilding. At first, it was about justice. Then it became about healing. And somewhere along the way, I realized I wasn't just grateful to him. I loved him. Not because he saved me, but because he never once asked me to be anything but myself. When he proposed, it wasn't dramatic. It was honest. Simple. And it felt more real than anything I'd ever experienced. We're getting married next spring. Not in a grand cathedral. Not with a guest list built on image or obligation. Just a small ceremony with the people who stood by me when the truth came out. The florist, photographer, and caterer from my first wedding all offered their services for free. They said they wanted to be part of something genuine this time. And this time, it really is. Vanessa and Ryan won't be there. But I know, somehow, they'll be watching. Because some stories are too unforgettable to ignore. And now, the story isn't about them. It's about choosing better. It's about starting over. It's about finally choosing myself. Life lesson for the audience. Sometimes, the most painful betrayal becomes the start of the most powerful transformation. When people show you who they really are, believe them. But more importantly, believe in yourself enough to walk away. You don't need to destroy others to reclaim your worth. Let the truth speak for itself. Stand tall in the storm. You'll be amazed at what waits for you on the other side. Call to action. Have you ever had to rebuild after someone broke your trust? What helped you move forward? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear how you rose from your own ruins. If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more real, emotional stories that remind us healing begins when the truth is finally told.